When 18-year-old Madison Hayes started her Instagram live session on that Tuesday evening in March, she thought she was just doing her usual evening chat with her 5 million followers, talking about makeup, fashion, and the drama in her life that kept her audience obsessively engaged. She had built her entire identity around being perfectly curated, every post planned, every word calculated for maximum engagement. But on this particular night, Madison made a mistake that would cost her everything. After she thought she had ended the stream, she turned to her best friend, sitting next to her on the bed, and said 7 words that 50,000 people heard in real time. "I can't believe I actually killed her." Within minutes, screen recordings were spreading across the internet like wildfire, and by the next morning, police were at her door with a warrant for the murder of her former friend and rival influencer, 19-year-old Ashley Chen. Madison Hayes had never planned to be famous. Growing up in suburban Phoenix, Arizona, she was a shy, awkward teenager who struggled with anxiety and found it easier to express herself through a screen than in person. She started her Instagram account at 15, posting makeup tutorials and fashion hauls, and something about her authentic awkwardness resonated with viewers. Within 2 years, she had transformed from a nervous girl filming videos in her bedroom to a polished influencer with millions of followers, brand deals worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and an ego that had grown to match her following. The shy girl who had started the account was gone, replaced by someone who believed her own carefully constructed image, someone who had learned that online she could be whoever she wanted to be, and people would worship her for it. Ashley Chen had been Madison's friend since middle school, long before either of them had any social media following. She had been there during Madison's awkward years, had helped her film her first videos, had celebrated with her when her account started growing. But as Madison's fame exploded, their friendship became strained by jealousy and competition. Ashley started her own influencer account, and while she was successful in her own right, reaching about 800,000 followers, she existed in Madison's shadow, constantly compared to her more famous friend, and the comparison was eating away at both of them. The breaking point came when a major cosmetics company, Luxe Beauty, approached both girls about a brand ambassadorship. The deal was worth $500,000, came with a signature product line, and would cement whoever got it as a top-tier influencer. Both Madison and Ashley were in the final round of consideration, and the competition between them, which had been simmering for months, erupted into open warfare. They stopped speaking, started subtly shading each other in posts, and the respective fan bases picked up on the tension, turning it into internet drama that generated millions of views and comments. When Luxe Beauty announced their decision on a Wednesday morning in early March, choosing Ashley Chen as their new ambassador, Madison's world shattered. For someone whose entire identity was built on being the best, the most followed, the most desired, this public rejection in favor of her former best friend was unbearable. She posted a gracious congratulations on social media, playing the role of the supportive friend, but privately she spiraled into a rage so intense it frightened even her. Her followers noticed nothing wrong, saw only the perfect posts and cheerful stories, but the people close to Madison saw something darker emerging, a vindictiveness and obsession that seemed to consume her every waking thought. Madison began plotting almost immediately, not with any clear plan at first, but with a growing certainty that Ashley's success needed to be destroyed, that somehow Ashley needed to pay for this humiliation. She stalked Ashley's social media obsessively, screenshotted every post, analyzed every photo for something she could use against her. She started a whisper campaign, sending anonymous messages to brands Ashley worked with, making false accusations about her character, trying to undermine her credibility. But nothing worked. Ashley's career continued to flourish, the Luxe Beauty campaign launched successfully, and Madison's jealousy transformed into something far more dangerous: hatred. The murder occurred on a Saturday evening, March 18th, at Ashley's apartment in Scottsdale, Arizona. Ashley was preparing for a photo shoot the next day, alone in her apartment and excited about the opportunities opening up for her. Madison had reached out earlier that week, suggesting they meet to clear the air and repair their friendship. Ashley, who despite everything still had affection for her former friend, agreed to meet. She had no way of knowing that Madison had spent the previous week researching methods, buying supplies, and planning exactly how she would end Ashley's life and make it look like an accident or a robbery gone wrong.
Madison arrived at Ashley's apartment at 7 p.m. carrying a bottle of wine as a peace offering. They sat on Ashley's couch, talking about old times, laughing about shared memories, and for a brief moment it seemed like their friendship might actually be salvageable. Ashley let her guard down completely, trusting the girl she had known for years, never seeing the cold calculation in Madison's eyes or the way her hand kept drifting to her purse where she had hidden a kitchen knife she had brought from home. The attack was sudden and brutal. As Ashley stood up to refill their wine glasses, Madison pulled the knife from her purse and stabbed her in the back. Ashley screamed and tried to fight back, but Madison, driven by months of rage and jealousy, attacked with a ferocity that overwhelmed her victim. She stabbed Ashley repeatedly, and when it was over, Ashley Chen lay dead on her living room floor, her blood soaking into the cream-colored carpet, and her phone still clutched in her hand where she had desperately tried to call for help. Madison stood over the body, breathing heavily, her clothes and hands covered in blood. The reality of what she had done began to penetrate the fog of rage, and panic set in. She tried to stage the scene to look like a robbery, overturning furniture, taking Ashley's laptop and some jewelry, wiping down surfaces she remembered touching. But she was sloppy, leaving obvious signs of staging, and most critically, she left behind forensic evidence that would later tie her to the scene. She changed into a spare set of clothes she had brought in her bag, stuffed her bloody clothes into a plastic bag, and left the apartment, forcing herself to walk calmly to her car even as her heart pounded and her hands shook. Ashley's body was discovered the next morning by her manager, who had come to pick her up for the photo shoot and found the door slightly ajar and no response to his calls. The scene was horrific, and the manager immediately called 911. Phoenix police detectives arrived to what was clearly a homicide staged to look like a burglary. The overturned furniture was too deliberate, valuable items remained in full plain sight, and there were no signs of forced entry. This was personal, not random, and investigators immediately began looking at Ashley's social circle, her relationships, and most importantly, her online presence. Detective Maria Gonzalez, who specialized in cases involving social media and young victims, began reviewing Ashley's accounts and quickly discovered the public tension between Ashley and Madison Hayes. She found the subtle shade in posts, the competitive dynamics, and most tellingly, she found comments from fans noting how Madison had seemed increasingly bitter about Ashley's success. Madison was brought in for questioning within 48 hours of the murder, and she performed brilliantly, playing the role of the devastated friend, crying on cue, expressing shock and unbelief, and providing what seemed like a solid alibi. She claimed she had been home alone that night, filming content for her channel. But Detective Gonzalez was not convinced. Something about Madison's performance felt off, too calculated, too aware of how she appeared. The detective obtained a warrant for Madison's social media accounts, her phone records, and her financial transactions. What they found was damning. Google searches on Madison's phone for "how to stage a burglary," "how long does DNA stay under fingernails," and, most tellingly, "how to delete Instagram messages permanently." Her purchase history showed that she had bought a knife matching the murder weapon days before Ashley's death. And perhaps most critically, her location data from her phone showed that she had been in the area of Ashley's apartment at the time of the murder, despite her claims of being home.
Madison was arrested 5 days after the murder and charged with first-degree murder. She posted bail, returned home, and immediately went back to social media, posting a tearful video proclaiming her innocence, calling the charges false, and rallying her millions of followers to her defense. Many believed her, organizing online campaigns with hashtags like Justice for Madison and Free Madison Hayes, convinced that their beloved influencer was being falsely accused. But others, particularly Ashley's followers and those who had seen the tension between the two girls, believed Madison was guilty and began their own campaigns demanding justice for Ashley. The case became a social media phenomenon, with every court appearance live tweeted, every piece of evidence debated by armchair detectives online, and Madison's follower count paradoxically growing as the notoriety brought even more attention to her account. She continued posting throughout the legal proceedings, maintaining her innocence, sharing behind-the-scenes glimpses of her defense preparation, and cultivating a narrative of herself as a victim of a justice system that didn't understand influencer culture or the pressures of online fame. The confession that would ultimately destroy Madison came not from interrogation, not from a witness, but from her own mouth and her own carelessness. 2 months after her arrest, as she awaited trial, Madison decided to do a routine Instagram live session, one of the evening chats with followers that had been a staple of her content for years. She was in her bedroom with her friend Kayla, another influencer who had stood by her throughout the ordeal, and they were discussing the case, carefully, aware that thousands of people were watching. Madison had become skilled at maintaining her innocence publicly, at playing the role of the wrongly accused, and this stream was no different. She talked about her faith in the justice system, her confidence that the truth would come out, and her gratitude for her supporters. After about 45 minutes, she said her usual goodbye, waved at the camera, and reached to end the stream. But in her distraction, talking to Kayla and reaching for her phone, she hit the wrong button. Instead of ending the stream, she merely minimized the app, and the stream continued running, audio and video still broadcasting to the 50,000 people who were still watching. Neither Madison nor Kayla realized the stream was still live. They thought they were having a private conversation, two friends alone in a room. Madison set her phone down on the bed, camera facing up toward the ceiling, but microphone still picking up every word, and in that moment of perceived privacy, her carefully maintained facade shattered. "God, I'm so sick of pretending to be upset about Ashley," Madison said, her voice suddenly devoid of the emotion she had shown on camera moments before. "Do you know how hard it is to act devastated about someone I hated?" Kayla's voice quieter, uncertain. "Maddie, you shouldn't talk like that. What if someone hears?" Madison laughed, a cold, bitter sound. "Who's gonna hear? We're alone. And honestly, I'm tired of pretending. She got what she deserved. She took everything from me, and I took it back." There was a pause, then Kayla's voice, shocked. Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying exactly what you think I'm saying. I can't believe I actually killed her. And the crazy thing, I don't even feel bad about it. She was going to ruin my career, steal my opportunities, and I couldn't let that happen. The only thing I regret is getting caught, and honestly, I don't think they can prove anything. It's all circumstantial." The words hung in the air of Madison's bedroom, and simultaneously, they hung in the digital space where 50,000 people were hearing them in real time. Within seconds, viewers began screen recording, capturing the confession. Within minutes, clips were being shared across Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. By the next morning, when Madison woke up and checked her phone, her world had imploded. Detective Gonzalez received a call at 6 a.m. from a colleague who sent her a link to one of the recordings. She listened in stunned disbelief as Madison casually admitted to murder, and she immediately contacted the prosecutor's office. By 9 a.m., they had obtained official copies of the live stream from Instagram servers, had verified its authenticity, and had filed a motion to introduce it as evidence. By noon, Madison was arrested again, this time with her bail revoked, and she was taken into custody where she would remain until trial. Madison's defense attorney, David Richardson, a high-profile lawyer who had taken her case for the publicity, found himself in an impossible position. His client had confessed to murder, on video, with thousands of witnesses, and there was no way to claim it was taken out of context or fabricated. He attempted to argue that the confession was made in private, that it shouldn't be admissible because Madison believed she was having a private conversation, but the prosecution easily countered that anything broadcast on a public live stream, even accidentally, was fair game as evidence. The case became less about whether Madison killed Ashley and more about confirming what everyone already knew from the live stream. The prosecution, led by Senior Deputy District Attorney Robert Chen, presented a comprehensive case. The forensic evidence tying Madison to the scene, her phone's location data, her incriminating Google searches, witness testimony about her jealousy and rage, and of course, the live stream confession. They played the audio in court, and the jury, along with Ashley's family and the packed gallery, heard Madison's cold, casual admission of murder and her complete lack of remorse.
Madison's defense tried to paint a picture of a girl under immense pressure, someone who had snapped under the weight of social media fame, someone whose words on the live stream were taken out of context or were an expression of dark humor
rather than literal truth. They brought psychologists who talked about the disconnect between online persona and real self, about how influencers often perform even in private, about how Madison's words might not mean what they seem to mean. But when the prosecution played the full clip, with Madison's tone, her laughter, her casual dismissal of any guilt, and her strategic discussion of how the evidence against her was only circumstantial, the defense's arguments crumbled. This was not a girl joking or performing. This was a killer who thought she had gotten away with murder and was careless enough to brag about it while accidentally broadcasting to thousands. The most powerful moment of the trial came when Ashley Chen's mother took the stand for her victim impact statement. She spoke through tears about her daughter's kindness, her work ethic, her dreams that would never be realized. She talked about how Ashley had been excited about her career, about the opportunities opening up, about how she had told her mother she was finally happy. And then she turned to Madison, who sat at the defense table with her head down, and said, "You didn't just kill my daughter. You killed her because she succeeded, because she was better than you, and you couldn't stand it. You are not a victim. You are a monster who destroyed a beautiful life because of your own jealousy and ego." Madison, for the first time since her arrest, showed genuine emotion. But it was not remorse, it was anger. Her face flushed, her jaw clenched, and for a moment the mask slipped completely, and the jury saw the same cold rage that had driven her to murder. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning with their verdict: guilty of first-degree murder, guilty of lying to police, guilty of tampering with evidence. Madison showed no reaction when the verdict was read, sitting stone-faced at the defense table, but her hands gripped the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles went white. At sentencing, Judge Patricia Morrison addressed Madison directly. "Ms. Hayes, you cultivated an image of perfection online, of someone who had it all together, someone millions of people looked up to. But behind that image was a deeply narcissistic individual who believed the world owed you success, who believed anyone who competed with you deserved to be destroyed. You murdered Ashley Chen not in a moment of passion, but in a calculated, premeditated act because you could not accept that she might be better than you at something. And then, in what may be the most arrogant act I have witnessed in my 20 years on the bench, you bragged about it on social media, the same platform where you built your fame, demonstrating a complete lack of remorse or understanding of the gravity of what you had done." Judge Morrison sentenced Madison Hayes to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Madison would spend the rest of her life behind bars, her carefully curated image replaced by a prison uniform, her millions of followers replaced by the confines of a cell. As bailiffs led her from the courtroom, she turned back one final time, not looking at Ashley's family or the judge, but scanning the gallery for cameras, for phones, for any device that might be recording her, still unable to let go of the image even as it crumbled to dust around her. The case became a watershed moment in discussions about social media, influencer culture, and the dangers of building one's entire identity around online validation. Madison's Instagram account was permanently deleted by the platform, her videos and posts scrubbed from the internet, except for archives maintained for legal and educational purposes. The brands she had worked with scrambled to distance themselves from her, issuing statements about their commitment to values and their horror at her actions. For Ashley Chen's family and friends, no verdict could bring her back, but there was some comfort in knowing that justice had been served and that Madison's own arrogance and carelessness had been her undoing. Ashley was remembered not as Madison's victim, but as a talented, kind young woman who had worked hard for her success and whose life had been stolen by someone who couldn't accept that success wasn't a zero-sum game. And for the 50,000 people who heard Madison's confession in real time, who watched as an influencer's carefully constructed world collapsed in the space of a few careless words, the case served as a stark reminder that in the age of social media, privacy is an illusion. Every word can be recorded, and the image we project online can never fully hide who we really are. Madison Hayes had built her empire on the belief that she could control her narrative, that she could be whoever she wanted to be online. But in the end, technology, the same force that had made her famous, exposed the truth she tried so desperately to hide, that behind the filters and the carefully curated posts was a killer who had destroyed a life and felt no remorse for doing so.
The live stream that ended Madison's freedom remained online in various forms, a permanent record of the moment when an influencer forgot that in the digital age, nothing is ever truly private, and every mistake can be witnessed by thousands. It became required viewing in law schools, discussing digital evidence, in psychology classes, examining narcissism and social media, and in journalism courses, exploring the intersection of technology and crime. Madison Hayes had wanted to be famous, to be remembered, to be someone people talked about. She got her wish, just not in the way she had imagined. She would be remembered not as a successful influencer, but as a cautionary tale about jealousy, narcissism, and the dangers of believing your own carefully constructed image.